Welcome and thanks everybody for coming tonight. So what we're going to do tonight is I have a prepared statement that I'll talk first or read first. There's some index cards in the back there. If you want to write a question and submit a question to me, you can do that, or you can just simply raise your hand and ask. I will do my best to answer everything that I can tonight. Can everybody hear me okay? Yep. All right, we're good. I have served Adams County Sheriff's Office for over 22 years. In that time, I have worked tirelessly for our community, understanding the important role I play in upholding laws of our land. Until I received notice of administrative leave, I had not received any other disciplinary actions. When I received the administrative leave notice for an incident that occurred in 2001 on October 10th, I was shocked. That case was litigated extensively in both civil and criminal courts. I was never charged or disciplined for the incident. The inaccuracies in recent news reports were corrected during the investigation prior to deposition. I stand by those statements today. News reports recently talk about an overturned case from 2016. That appeal process started in January of this year. The district attorney acknowledges I was not the main issue for the case being overturned. The case focuses on a report from another law enforcement agency that should have been turned over but was not in my possession. I am not perfect, but I know the truth, and what is being reported is an attack on my character. I am disappointed that my opponent chose timing so close to the election to place me on administrative leave. I look forward to the day when I can clear my name and restore my reputation in our community. I have been humbled by the calls and support I have received from so many in our community. It means more than you know. So that's a statement in reference to why I'm on leave. I'm sure there'll be other questions tonight that surround that. I'll do my best to answer what I can. I do have some pre-submitted questions I can run through. Actually, first, is I don't know what everybody has known about me or seen or been to other events that I've talked with or whatever, but I'll just briefly go over a little bit about me. So I'm a lifelong resident of Adams County. I've lived here my whole life. I attended Adams Central High School, graduated in 1992. I then attended Mid-State Technical College for marketing and police science. I later received a bachelor's degree in business management from Lakeland College. I also have training in first line supervision for criminal justice and other supervisory courses from University of Wisconsin-Platteville and North Central Technical College. I was hired in 1995 part-time, 1996 full-time as a jail officer while I was still attending college at Mid-State. I worked in the jail for approximately 3 years, was promoted to a traffic officer for about 3 years, and then a traffic sergeant for about 5 years, and for the past 11 years I've been an investigator. My community involvement, I think, is pretty extensive. I've been involved with the Rush Creek Little League. I was a past president and vice president, AF Youth Baseball, Basketball, and Soccer, Wrestling Club, Rush Creek Bowman, for a long time member of that. Currently the Youth Committee co-chair for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, past council member and vice president for our church, a instructor for hunter safety, ATV, and snowmobiles for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Related training and associations, again, fairly extensive, I believe, from the Wisconsin Department of Justice, death investigation, drug investigations, financial crimes, arson, evidence technician, attended numerous conferences on death investigations as well. Some of my Endorsements are here tonight, former Sheriff Roberta Sindler and former Sheriff Darrell Runner, also endorsed by Larry Warren and retired Chief Brett Anderson from the city Wisconsin Dells Police Department. So that's a little bit about me on my pamphlet. If you guys can get one on the back table back there, along with some other can koozies and magnets, if you guys want those. So I'll fire off a couple questions that I received here. So what will your first change? What will your first change be? Ultimately, let's see. So my first change, assuming as sheriff, would be to direct officers and assign officers to proactively take care of the drug problem. That is our number one problem that feeds into numerous other facets within our community and related crimes. Again, that's just going to be reassigning people in their current job duties to let them focus on drugs and not be pulled away to do other crimes that are reactionary to the drug problem. So just to kind of continue with that, I mean, the drug problem goes into other crimes, property crimes primarily. People are breaking into places to get to steal things, to get money to buy their drugs. And with that, ultimately, is to develop a problem-oriented policing model that identifies the issues and problems at hand and goes deeper into why the people have problems to cut those avenues off to also help with the drug problem and its prevalence in our community. So what is your position on community and citizen involvement with the Sheriff's Office? So my position on the community and citizen involvement, obviously we as the Sheriff's Office, we have to be involved in our community. Not only the Sheriff, but other members of the Sheriff's Office need to be involved in our community to get to know one another, to know that we're approachable, that people can come to us and talk to us and tell us about problems or concerns that they're having in their neighborhoods. As sheriff, one of the things I have in my pamphlet is basically just that. To be able to develop community-oriented policing where officers become familiar with their patrol sectors, residents, and businesses. While campaigning, I can't tell you the houses, businesses I've gone to where they say, well, we don't ever see you guys. We don't ever see the officer. We never have an officer stop by. This is the first person from the sheriff's department I've ever talked to. And, we're a rural county, but it shouldn't be that way. We should be out there so that you as residents and the taxpayers can know who we are and talk to us on a different level than us coming to your house to handle a problem or an incident. That shouldn't be our first contact. We need to turn our contacts into positive contacts with the community and be more involved that way. Also, kind of going off from that, the same question is regularly attend town board meetings and community organization events to develop community or communication with citizens. Again, just kind of going out about campaigning, people would tell me things about what's going on in their neighborhood, what matters to them. And those are the things that a lot of times people don't necessarily feel that that's enough to call, but that call could be the one thing that we need to move forward in an investigation or a case. So to bring down the walls a little bit and be more approachable would help that. So this question says, how did some media before October 1st to request open records? Yeah, that's a good question. So in one of the news sources of recent. It quotes per open records request on October 1st. I wasn't given my letter till October 9th, so I don't know why. And I received a copy of that on October 10th. And the notice, the open records request was very specific to this, to the Stephen Golson case. So I don't know why all of a sudden, 9 days before I got notified that this was happening, that a news source would know that information. I'm not able to answer other people's actions for that, I guess. So at the forum, you talked about open records requests. Have you since received them? I have. I gotta get my paperwork here so I can talk about those. So I requested 9 areas, I guess, or questions or topics. I received 4 responses back. The other 5 were denied. I submitted my open records request on September 2nd. On September 14th, I sent an email requesting that they had received my response and where my response was. I received an email back confirming that they had received my open records request and an initial response was being prepared. I ultimately received the response on October 11th. So I guess what did I get in my open records request? This is what I got. It's $105 worth of open records requests. Of the items that were requested that I received responses back to, one was basically involving documents relating to the jail decertification, which was, I guess, somewhat uneventful of any documents. I received about 5 or 6 letters that were already published. Let's see. Of another area was the jail inspections for the jail. And I guess a couple points with that 2017 jail inspection. The Department of Corrections noted 7 violations or non-compliance issues in 6 different areas of concern. In 2016 jail inspection, 8 Department of Correction violations or non-compliant issues in 4 areas of concern. The other question I had asked was about the overtime. And so for the 2018 to date for department overtime was $282,000. Was January to October 5th. And 2017 was $355,000, and 2016 was $350,000. Those are approximate numbers. There's some change added to those. So the other areas were denied for some different reasons. You know, in going with the open records request, obviously working at the department, I can't talk publicly about information that I know from working there. So this is the way that I have to get that information so I can present the information factually to the public for the points that I want to make. You know, just in with that, you know, I read about the Department of Justice and what their guide is to open records requests. And they say that the response must be provided as soon as practical without delay. And they define that as 10 working days. And that if a response can't be made in those 10 days, that a communication should be sent to tell why that information can't be obtained within that 10-day period. And mine took 29 days. You know, and the real thing with the open records request is to show transparent government. It's to show transparent government. There's open records laws are set for that very reason.
Brent, did they give you a reason that it took that long? I'm just curious.
No reason it took that long.
Okay.
No, I only got the one, like I said, that I replied because I wanted to make sure that they got it. You know, I was thinking, well, maybe they just didn't get my email. And I got the email saying that they had received it and that they were preparing an initial response. So that's what I received, yeah.
Brent, the overtime that you mentioned, is that in the budget?
Well, that's, yes, the overtime, well, I don't know how it's actually itemized in the budget, but I mean, it ultimately comes out of the budget, yes.
But was it accounted for?
I don't know the answer to that, I guess. And the reason I wanted the overtime to some degree is it goes to show the staffing issue that we have and our turnover. And that costs a lot of money. And for those of you who are at the forum, I referenced the county insurance lady had talked at a training that to replace a road deputy is about $57,000. And that's a lot of money. And when we go through, you know, we have a lot of turnover, and when we go through people, that's where you're seeing that number. That's where you're seeing so if you look at that, there's an underlying problem there. Ultimately, is why that number is. There's events and there's things that will happen that we can't control over time. We have to respond accordingly to different situations. We will never get away with zero overtime, but there are times that we can control the overtime and limit that. All right, so I think that was answered that question.
Brent, what was the items that you were denied to have?
So the first one, on June 19, 2018, I had attended a county board meeting, and Sheriff Woolen had advised the county board that he had been contacted by at least 2 counties and had to deny them for housing inmates in our jail because the jail was going to be decertified or because of the security concerns. And I wanted to know what counties those were, and I was denied that information. So the other one was I wanted pictures or videos that documented the accordion gate that I refer to it as, which is made the jail in compliance again, and I was denied that. The other item I wanted was the itemized amount of money budgeted from the Adams County Sheriff's Office for the treatment court, and said money from the grants, total number of active participants in the program, number of graduates, and total amount spent on training as related to drug court. I was denied that one. I also asked for the total number of internal investigations itemized by year division. I didn't want names, I just wanted what the investigations were, how many. I also wanted the date, oh no, I got that one, sorry. I guess I forgot to cover that one. I wanted the date that the jail last housed 62, or average 62 inmates for population levels. So if you remember back when the jail issues first began, there was an article in our local paper that said, based on how much it would cost to house these inmates in the furthest counties away that they could find to house them. And knowing what our jail inmate levels are every day, I know we haven't had 62 inmates in a long time, and I believe that number was inflated to make this number look bad, that we had to really do something to fix this jail. And they did give me a printout that was January of 2018 that we housed think 58 inmates. Not 62, but somewhat close. Again, knowing working there and seeing the jail list every day, that still seems rather high to me. And then the last one I was denied on was I wanted to know the amount of money received from Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources that reimburses the county for the recreation officer position, budget for the year 2017, and they say that they didn't have any records of receiving money from the DNR. The reason for that is we have a recreation officer position that is reimbursed from the DNR for patrol, for specifically to recreation office, snowmobile, ATV, snowmobile, boat. And now with the second school liaison officer, the sheriff has said that he will partially pay for the summer months of this officer by the DNR funds. And I believe the amount that is reimbursed to the county does not fully pay for one position, let alone the second position. And I want to know that dollar amount.
Brent, at the last county board meeting, they brought up that he's going to have 25 inmates from Wood County that they've made that contract.
Right, yep, I am aware of that now, yes.
Okay.
Yep, so those were the questions I didn't get my answers to.
What's the capacity of the jail?
108 beds.
Is the jail in compliance now?
Yes.
It is.
Since the gate was installed, it became compliant. Yes. It's not putting the gate up there made the jail in compliance. It's not. It's a Band-Aid on the problem. It's not a long-term solution to the problem of how our jail is. And the way I've explained it at different meetings is, you picture your house and you got a hallway that goes from your bedroom to the kitchen, and they put a gate up. And in order to get to the kitchen, you got to go out a side door and come in another door to get in your kitchen. That's essentially what we have, and it's not good because it cuts our building in half. The gate is located right outside my office, and if there's an issue in, say, the courthouse, for me to get to the courthouse, I have to run out the building to the north, up Adams Street to re-enter the courthouse. It's not a good solution, but based on either decertifying the jail, shutting it down, or putting up the gate, well, you have to put the gate up. And I think early on in the campaign, you know, that's what I was saying, is put the gate up, because that's what I think was the best decision at the time. And it was being fought by Sheriff Woolen. And I understand it's not a great fix, but based on the possibilities, that's really all there was to do. Get the gate up, get it certified, keep it certified, and work on a long-term plan to fix the problem.
So if you didn't put that gate out and you had the company certified, what would have happened, like inmates? How much would it have cost the county? What would have to be done?
Well, yeah, they wouldn't have, I don't know if it ever gotten to that point, because it's been, as I look back in the jail records I have, it's actually listed, it's not even listed as a violation in the jail inspection reports, it's listed as, I believe it's area of concern, is how it's listed. It's not even a violation. Regardless, it's not good. We can't have guns in the jail. That's the bottom line to it. So we would have, if the Department of Corrections would have decertified the jail, the county would have been forced to take inmates to some other place, to house them somewhere else. So it would have been costly. My point with the open records request and the 62 inmates is we haven't had 62 inmates in our jail in a long time. We're honestly, we're in the 30s. So maybe close to 40-ish, but it's a long ways from 62. And so, you know, I just felt that number was being inflated to make the sticker shock kind of, so to speak, to get the point across and say, well, we really got to build this new jail building. Well, I don't know why it took so long. I mean, I can only speculate, I can't answer for other people's actions. They gave some responses. For example, one of them was, so in my first one I asked for about the 2 counties that Sheriff Owen talked about at the county board meeting. I asked for identify the counties, representative you spoke to or contacted in reference to this, and any such conversations, and provide any other emails that are related to those conversations. And they said that they had no email records to meet the above defined request. So I wasn't asking for just emails, but that's why they denied it. A second denial, let's see, they said about the gate. They performed the public records balancing test and concluded that the information requested went against the possible harm to the public, outweighed the benefit to the request heard. Another one they said was the request was overly broad, which I thought that was, I thought my question was pretty specific. Itemized amount of money budgeted from the Adams County Sheriff's Office for Adams County Drug Court, amount of said money that is from grants, number of total active current participants in the program, number of graduates, and total amount spent on training related to drug court. I thought that was fairly specific, but they thought it was broad.
Because maybe it's not really working very well.
I-
That sounded pretty specific.
Yeah, I thought it was. I tried to, just write it the best I could for the information I wanted. So that was one. Another one was, another one was overly broad, and then they stated some other different statutes. Yeah, the one says denied is overly broad as it fails to specify time periods for records sought. Well, in my response for the recreation officer, for the budget items for the year 2017, well, that was not the criteria there, but so I didn't go any further with it. I spent $105 to get a couple of questions answered.
Who specifically denied those requests?
My letter was from Corporation Counsel.
But legally, they're out of compliance, whatever word you want to use, by taking more than 10 days.
Yeah, according to the DOJ, yes. All right.
Brent, in the other meeting, staffing was Wolin's biggest concern, where yours was your administrative leave given to you that day. So can you address staffing? Years back, you knew all the officers in Adams County. They were born and raised here, and they just knew everybody, and that's a good thing for counties. Now, you were saying like they don't have a lot of tenure left?
Yeah, we've I don't have the exact numbers, but we've sustained a fair amount of turnover, most specifically in the road and jail divisions.
Why?
There's a number of reasons. There's people have left for other jobs. People have, and they've left the jobs for different reasons. Surrounding the work environments, and there's without going into a lot of details, but that's probably the biggest area is just the work environment, and over the years the increase in our insurance, and it really hasn't caught up with the wages, and people can go make what we make elsewhere and not have to work shift work, weekends, nights, holidays, and be subjected to the different things that come with the job in law enforcement. So there's a bunch of reasons, but knowing that that's a problem, we got to make some attempts to fix that. And we've been in contract negotiations here now with our road division for several months, actually since the first of the year. And, it hasn't really gone very far. And we're fighting, we as the union are fighting for just, to get a little bit. And a lot of the counties around us, make a lot more than we do. And I think, it, so to speak, throwing the guys a bone would go a long ways, knowing that we have this turnover issue.
So specifically, as sheriff, what are the things, Brent, that you would be able to do you think, to improve this? Because that is, terrible that you have to deal with this shortage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with the shortage creates so much extra on the people. We're taking literally, young officers. Some, we've hired are 20, 21 years old. They're young kids right out of college. We're throwing them through basically 12 weeks of field training program, and then here you go. You're out on the streets by yourself, and then, oh yeah, you get your first days off, yeah, you're ordered to work because we're shorthanded. And, that's difficult. And when it happens your first weekend and then your next weekend, and you're working a lot of 12-hour shifts in a row, that weighs on you, and there's burnout. And, our job isn't always easy. And being young and subjected to the things that we see a lot of times are difficult. So, we got to do a lot of things. First off, I think we got to work with the union to up what they want. We have to be comparable with our surrounding counties. I believe Washington County just ratified their contract, and I believe a road officer makes about $3 an hour more than I do as a senior investigator at the department with 22 years of experience. So, where I live, I can go about a half a mile to the east and make $3 an hour more. That's a big difference. And yeah, somebody had mentioned to people who were born and raised here and stayed here, yeah, we don't have a lot of that anymore. And that's, a good thing, bad thing, either way. I mean, there's plenty of qualified people that we have working for us that don't live here, and that's perfectly fine. But regardless, we gotta make the workplace where people want to stay, and they want to stay here.
I have a question when you talk about, the financial aspect of it and the benefit, package. What about the other part as far as just plain acknowledgement? What is out there as far as being personable with the officers, the jailers, all of those, the dispatchers, all those that are involved, as far as just a simple thank you and great job?
Yeah, when I was first hired, I was hired by Sheriff Farber, and I worked in the jail, but I was certifiable so I could work the road. So they would be short a little bit on the road, and Farber would come to me and he'd nudge me in the ribs and he'd say, hey, I need you to work, and I'm like, well, I'm working in the jail, and he would say, hey, I'll fill the shift. And I'd work that night shift, being a young officer, or I'd work my day off for him because I respected him. And I always got a thank you. I always got even, hey, let me take you for breakfast for working that shift. I got that acknowledgement. And we don't get that anymore. And I guess not necessarily does everyone always need a thank you or a pat on the back, but that goes a long way sometimes, in our job, and to change things and make things more positive. Did I answer that question? Okay.
Friendly morale.
Okay, yes, there we go.
And having camaraderie would be a great thing in the sheriff's department?
Yes, absolutely, and and it goes to the turnover. Just not knowing the people, and not, it's not that we don't get to know each other, but for like me, I work primarily day shifts, so I don't meet some of the night shift guys, whether it's in the jail or road, unless I get called in on my time off or I'm on call, and so you just don't get to know the people, and we need to fix that, and so that we have that. One of the times here not that long ago, I stood on the range on the line, and the couple guys next to me, literally had probably a year or two experience together combined, you know, when we go into those situations, we gotta know we have each other. And not saying anything bad against them, and it's not anything bad against them, but we gotta stop this turnover. We have to keep the people working here so that you guys can get to know them. I had a story a few months ago. One morning I left my driveway and I reported on duty on my radio, and I met a squad a short distance down the road, like a quarter mile down the road, and I waved. And he didn't wave back, and so at lunchtime I said, hey, how come you didn't wave at me? Well, where'd I meet you? I said, I was pulling out my driveway. Well, where do you live at? You know? And I just kind of hit home a little bit. Like, not that every officer should know where I live, but God, if they say, hey, come pick up my squad or whatever, you know, where's Brent live would be, you know, not the question you think, you know, they'd be asking. And then again, you know, if they don't know where I live, they don't know where you guys live, you know? And that goes back to just keeping them here, knowing the people, meeting them in a positive light, and having a positive contact with them. So.
Brent, I know that there's a wide gap between the city of Adams and the Rome Police Department. How do you plan on getting those three departments to come back together and be unified?
Yeah, I think just working with them, opening up the lines of communication, and not trying to work against them. And you know, we have to work together. They're our backup, and we're their backup as well. Not wanting to you know, take over the police department. You know, I think that wasn't you know, good for the people that work there, for, you know, wanting to basically take them and possibly or potentially lose their jobs. So, you know, again, just working with them, training with them. You know, we don't train a lot with Rome or the city. Maybe on some of the bigger things that we might do, but, you know, monthly or quarterly trainings, to be able to work with them to, again, when we get called to those situations, to be able to know how each other react and what our responsibilities are. Just simply knowing what we request of each other, what our duties are, or tasks are at those situations.
Speaking of which, do you have training with the ambulance yet? Like once or twice a year?
There was recently the helicopter light link maybe came in, and there was a training. And you know, I think that was a good example of just a time that we had that opportunity, or the sheriff's office had that opportunity to have a training together. And I believe like even the city of Adams Police Department wasn't notified of that training. I'm not sure, I can't speak to the town of Rome, I guess, for sure about that, but you know, that's a time when we all need to come together and have that training, so that if there's that critical incident, we can send, you know, whoever to set up the landing zone, or know what the responsibilities are with the ambulance crew, what they expect from us, especially on the different types of you know, drug overdoses or a car accident. What are our responsibilities? What are their responsibilities? And that goes to the fire department as well. And those are some of the things when I talk to some of the fire departments about doing training with each other, and knowing what they expect of us, what we expect from them, so that it's taken care of ahead of time and not on the scene. There's a lot of things that the firemen and first responders are exposed to now, especially with this fentanyl, that, you know, they're not always equipped with, or equipped for, or receive training. You know, when I went to school for the clandestine meth lab to be on the state response team, you know, there's a lot of things that, as we know, because house burned down in our community from meth, from cooking meth. There's a lot of that the fire departments didn't know about. They didn't know some of the potentials that they were walking into in those scenes.
But even more importantly, for you to personally know the EMTs and the firefighters, then you can work together better if you know each other.
Absolutely, that's a huge part of that for sure.
Brent, being an outlying township, we contract with Coloma Fire Department. I know Colburn contracts with Hancock. If you get into office, how willing would you be to get involved working with them? Because I'm sure, you know, Waushara County cops do something a little bit different than Adams County do at the scene of an accident. I mean, how willing are you to get to meet with them a little bit and make sure that everybody's on the same page?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a board with the fire departments now. I think it's just their chiefs get together, and so representative from those other departments, from the other counties can attend. And that's where we'd start rolling out that information and trainings at those meetings for that information to get to those other departments, such as, yeah, because we would have, you know, Waushara County, Plainfield, Oxford, Briggsville, Wisconsin Dells. You know, so there's a lot of different fire departments that come into Adams County that cover us, as well as ambulance, Waushara ambulance and Marquette County ambulance as well. All right. Okay, that's some other questions.
Brent, can we jump back to the jail real quick? And I guess a question that might answer itself, but what do you contribute to the low jail census? Does it mean Adams County has got less crime than they had before, a lack of aggressive officers, or do you have another thought?
Yeah. Ultimately, the judge is the person that sentences the inmates to jail. He's the only person that can do that. Recently, Judge Wood came to our Republican Party monthly meeting and talked about what he is required to go through before he can sentence somebody. So basically, he has to look at the protection of the public. I won't remember all of them because I'm not a judge. But those are the things that he has to look at to do that. So that's something that the judge, and it's not only just our judge, we have other judges that come into our county and sentence inmates on different cases. So, yeah, I don't know if I can really speculate too much with that. I don't know that crime is less. Some would probably say crime is up. But I do know, that the numbers are low. When I worked in the jail in 99 or 96 to 99, we had around 100 people in our jail. We had safekeepers from a lot of counties. That was when the safekeeper is when we take an inmate from another county and house them in our county jail, and then that county pays the county for us to keep them. And at the time, a lot of counties were experiencing high inmate populations, and Adams County made pretty good money for a lot of years on that. And since then, overall, some of those counties built new jails, so that business or that revenue went away.
Do we make money keeping inmates?
Yeah, we charge for them, so it's certainly money that goes into the budget. I believe the 25 inmates is projected to be around $250,000. I believe, I could be wrong on that, but just going from memory from the article in the newspaper. So that's revenue that offsets, the budget. So that's good. That's what we want, especially if we have an empty jail that can house people, and we can make money without incurring more additional costs, such as staffing.
So with inmates down, are people laid off?
No. So we have the same staffing, whether we right now have low numbers or high numbers. There's probably a point where there's a break-even cost or break-even point there. I don't know exactly what those numbers are though. All right, so I have a question kind of relating to, so it says, were you held civilly liable? And I'm guessing that goes to the Bozen incident, I was released from the civil lawsuit prior to settlement. So I was named in the lawsuit, in the civil lawsuit, and I was released from the lawsuit prior to settlement. Another question. This is again referring to the Bozen incident. The DA stated that I had knowledge of the transcript and did not turn it over. Yeah, I did have knowledge of it. I gave it. While I gave the deposition, I had an attorney that was hired by Adams County to represent the county's behalf for me. The transcript was, I full well known or believed that the county would have had the transcript. I would have no reason to believe that the county would not have had this transcript. I guess it kind of gives the article impression that I withheld it or didn't turn it over or something. I wouldn't have believed anything other than the county has had this transcript the entire time since I gave it. Let's see here. All right. So why did I run for sheriff? Yeah. So, I ran for sheriff because, working for the sheriff's office for over 2 decades, I've worked for a lot of different sheriffs. And we've had a lot of good times at the sheriff's office. We've had a lot of good friends that we've all made at the sheriff's office. That we've done things outside of work, at work. And, these last 8 years, seems that's kind of gone away. The atmosphere has changed. I feel that I can make a lot of good changes to change that, as well as a lot of inefficiencies in the sheriff's office. That goes to like the overtime. Having a business background and businesses want happy employees because they make money. Okay, they need a happy employee because they're in it to make money. County government isn't that way. The money's just there, and there's really not the need to have that because it's not for profits. And so that's kind of my mentality with that. There's a lot of inefficiencies that go to a lot of overtime in the areas. And you know what? I'm in the community all the time, almost every day, whether it's one of the boards I'm on, a community function, kids at a basketball game, football game, whatever it is. And everyone knows me, and they come up to me like, hey, how come you're not doing this? How come you're not doing that? What's up with this? Why isn't? And being in the community and getting all those questions, those are good questions. Those are very valid points. I can't address all of them, or the one recently or a few months ago I got is, how come the biggest drug house in the county is a block from the sheriff's office?
And on videotape, and nothing's done about it.
Two ways.
So, yeah, that upsets me that the citizens, the people that I know, that they trust me to do a job, they look at it as that I'm not doing that job. Well, I only can do the cases I'm assigned. There are, there's things that come up. I have some movement or lateral to do some things, but I'm assigned cases ultimately. I'm assigned my investigations. And when I leave the office and I drive by there, and in the middle of the daytime, of course, nothing much is going on typically. But it frustrates me. And then when I started campaigning and people just kept chewing my ear off about it, it upsets me. That upsets me a lot because those drugs are coming in our communities, they're affecting our kids and the future for our community. The way some cases are handled, the way that cases just aren't given the priority that ultimately I guess I feel that they need to be given. And, you know, a lot of times when cases come in, you know, I might not get assigned the case for weeks, and it might be an important case. Well, for me to go back out and try and rebuild that case a couple weeks later makes my job that much more difficult. So, and again, some of that goes to staffing. We're just, you know, the people, and we can only do so much. We can only produce so much work. One of the biggest things that, for me, is years and years ago, we had a secretary that transcribed our reports. I would go to a burglary report, and I will date myself here just a little bit, but I use my cassette recorder, and I would dictate my reports. And she would type them up, and I was still out and about and patrol in my area. Well, now our officers have to type our own reports. And as I said before, I type a lot of reports. They're generally long. I think I'm a pretty efficient typer, about 40 words a minute. But anyone that knows a transcriptionist or a secretary, they're probably in the 100+ words a minute. So that's a big inefficiency. You're paying me with specific knowledge and training to type reports. And that's keeping me from doing other investigations. To me, that's a big efficiency. Also with that is, you know, at the end of your shift, sometimes you see things and you say, you know what, I want to get home tonight. I don't want to stay and have to type my report, so they look past what they might see. That's not good. Or it could be the other way. An officer runs overtime, knowing that if they make an arrest, they got to stay and type reports. Either way, neither one of those is good for our purpose and what we're here for.
Do they normally type their reports at the end of their shift, during their shift?
Well, both. And that kind of goes to, again, just, you know, the reactionary law enforcement. You go to a call, you come back to type your report. You're in the middle of typing your report, maybe you get it done, and you get dispatched to another call. There's no proactive law enforcement going on. Proactive is we're out looking for that crime as it happens or before it happens. It's all reactionary. And that's just not an efficient way to do things. We're always reacting to the problem instead of getting in front of it or deterring it.
Well, and then you're shifting gears all the time instead of, like you said, dictating it, having somebody that can type 120 words a minute, get it done like that, and then they're shifting gears. So then when they report, get a call, gotta go, and it just seems like, then they gotta go back to the report or one time, and kind of.
Right, absolutely. And those,
Same time.
right, those are all good points. And it's you know, I think frustrating for the officers that have to do that and shift and go through multiple cases a day and type reports on multiple cases a day. It makes it difficult for sure. I think I saw a hand back there first, maybe?
Yeah, my concern is that, like you said, they have to go back and type the report, they get another call. Out where I live, all the way out of town, like right on the edge of town, that patrol officer that came in, that could have dictated it, now he just spent 25 minutes, he's not patrolling our area. There's another call, does somebody else cover it? You know, the response time by them coming back and typing them and staying here, I think that causes a lot of problems there too.
Absolutely, and that's my point to being, if we have transcription available, you can simply, you know, go out, handle the call, transcribe or dictate your report, and you're still in your patrol area and can react to that next call without driving back to the office all the time to have to type your report.
But isn't there dictation software that can do that?
Yeah, there is, and we can dictate reports. However, the turnaround time is very lengthy just because that person that does that is also responsible for records, and there's a lot of information of records that flow through our office through one person. So the records are the primary, and if they get time, they can type reports. So you know, there's reports that come back weeks and weeks later. And
So what would you do to make it more efficient?
well, we have to. We tried transcription software a while ago. I used it. It worked good. However, when we would get computer upgrades, that software wouldn't go with it, and then you have to purchase it again. So, so ultimately, we have to either shift how records is to get another records custodian, or have a person. We need a person. that is primarily able to transcribe reports, to take that load off. And maybe that person can help in records, secondary or different areas. So, you know, that's something we definitely have to look at and see how that is all handled currently, but that needs to be focused to get those reports.
Brent, can we go back to the infamous York Woolen debate on the 10th for a minute?
Okay.
The question was, and it was put to Woolen first, what he plans on doing about the methadone clinic in town. And he gave me a lecture at that time on that it wasn't a methadone clinic, it was something else. And he didn't answer the question. He said something about, mumbled something about rehabilitation. Well, that's not proactive by my standards at all. Could you elaborate on, you know, what we can do and what we anticipate?
Yeah, you know, I don't, it's reportedly not a methadone clinic primarily, is what I understand of it. So methadone is a drug that's given to counter a person's addictions. And a lot of times methadone itself can get used. And so you would see people come to those clinics to get methadone to trade for other drugs. Is what happens at some methadone clinics or other communities. This is reportedly not going to be just a methadone clinic.
Treatment center.
Right. So there's going to be other drugs, other different things that will happen there. What to expect from its opening? I think number one that they're going to have is a drug called Vivitrol. Vivitrol is another drug that is given that counteracts the addictions to drugs, and it works very well in other communities. How it works in other communities is the person has to be free from drug use for a period, I believe, around 10 days. So they're going to go through the withdrawals, and then they can be prescribed this Vivitrol. And Vivitrol has worked very well in some of the surrounding counties. So that's a great solution or great option for people with drug addictions in our community, for sure. You know, as far as increased traffic, I mean, yeah, there's going to be people coming there. You know, I don't know that as long as it's not a pure or straight methadone clinic, I don't think it'll be a bad thing. I think overall it'll offer some other solutions to our community with people with these addictions. I had a couple hands right here.
Well, my understanding was, and I can't tell you I'm truthful, but I was told that will save us money in the long run because we, as Adams County, we pay for these people to go to Madison for treatments.
Well,
And there's some that go across all over, and it's very costly.
it is. I mean, it's a state program, so it is, and they do get paid daily to go to the methadone clinics. So, well, you know, it's difficult for what they're going through, for sure. I've talked to a lot of people in those situations, and it is something that most of them choose not to have upon themselves, but they don't, you know, always make those choices best, but they're not in it, I don't think, because they want to be either. They truly have problems. The problem is being where we are, rural like this, we don't have a lot of options. This is going to add one of the options, and it may help. I don't know who exactly will pay for the treatment there. I don't know if it's billed individually or how that end of it works. Bob, I guess I answered your question quite right, maybe, one before.
Say, for example, old Bob here was pushing drugs. Now, where am I gonna go? I'm gonna try and find some weak people that might have a weak moment that I can push my product on. I might go to a smoking room at the VA. might even pop over here to Adam's Friendship, you know, hang around a little bit, see what's going on, you know. Maybe I can drop some stuff in a little bit.
So it's certainly possible that we will see increased activities such as drug activities or around that. That's certainly possible, but that's our job to deal with that. That's our job to identify that and deal with that.
You're on it.
Yep.
But you don't have enough officers.
Well, that's, again, and I've heard that before, but that's our job to fix that and to bring that forward and either identify the problem why there isn't or to get more. You know, I've heard basically, yeah, we're overworked and stuff. Well, you know, I'm not in the position to ask for more officers. If that's what it is, then that's his job to make that request or make that known. And why is that? Why are we? And how many? What do we need? It's that person's job as a sheriff to identify that and to address it and fix it.
I'm not sure what the correct name is for the program started by Judge Wood and D.A. Bonnet and Sam. But after this, with the disruption in your campaign, are you going to be able to work with that program if it continues?
Yes. Yeah, I do believe so. And I had conversations prior to about it with you know, with the drug treatment court. You know, it's certainly an option to help with the problem, the overall drug problem. You know, I don't know that it's you know, a solution to the whole problem, but it's certainly an alternative, or it's part of. And I think a lot of emphasis and you know, time and money and things have been spent on it. And you know, maybe just to get it off the ground and see what it'll do, and maybe after, you know, a time period, it'll get reassessed and maybe it won't be as good as they thought or hoped, or maybe they'll make some changes.
That's what you're on the drug court. My sources tell me that Sauk County has 15 in the drug court. It's for people that are drug addicts. I'm told here that we have 5 people. Recidivism is high. Wouldn't it make more sense to use those resources to go to the streets, talk to the kids, get it done before they get in the hands of these people that are going to violate?
Yeah, so
spending money on 5 people that are already drug addicts.
Right. Yeah, and so there's the model that we have, and then there's another model in drug treatment court that's a diversion court, and that's a program that gets out ahead of it. It's programming to teach the kids, young, identify the problems about the drugs, the consequences of the addiction, and show that end result. And you know, honestly, that's a model that I personally like better. I think it's better to you know, change the kids that or identify to the kids, young adults, of what this can do to you if you use it, and this is the path you go down. I think getting ahead of the problem, for me personally, I like that better. I think that's money better spent than the people that are the addicts. And quite honestly, I mean, they want that change. They want to have to change themselves. And you know, the court, I think, just celebrated their first year, and they haven't had anybody graduate yet, but it sounds like they have had some successes. But yeah, overall, I think going out and getting ahead of it with the kids is a better choice. But you know, I wasn't part of, you know, this court being set up, and so that's what we have right now, and maybe at some point they'll reassess that.
Can you talk about the local Adams County policeman that got himself fired for being on Facebook?
Say that question again?
The Adams County policeman who usually has the night shift, Sam Owen just fired him about the same time he relieved you for being on Facebook. That's what he told me personally.
Oh, I don't.
He's the one that did it to his son, you
I don't know who that, I don't
He's the
know.
one that arrested his son for the drugs.
Yeah, I don't know of anyone from the sheriff's office being
No, I
recently.
mean, the local town cop here. He was on the night shift.
Oh, in the city of Adams?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, I can't speak to the circumstances surrounding that.
So Brent, where are you left hanging with this administrative leave that clearly has disrupted your life and your campaign? Where are you with this now?
Well, I don't know right at this point. I haven't had any contact with the sheriff's office since that day. So I don't know what the timeline is or anything, I guess.
They just leave you hanging. Is there a hearing, or does someone try to clear your name or say, yeah, you're guilty, or?
Well, it's not any type of criminal investigation. It is not disciplinary in nature. So ultimately, this letter attacks your credibility, is what it does.
Brent, who's taking over your caseload of all the cases you've been doing to keep us safe? Do you know? Have you been contacted by that person?
No, like I said, I haven't been contacted by the office at all since being put on leave.
Well, where does it go from here?
You know, I don't really know. At some point,
November 6th.
yeah, it's really, there's a lot of uncertainty on my part right now. I don't know. So I can't control the actions of others and why this has become. So. Yep.
Maybe I'm a little uninformed in this, but what made them go back 17 years to dig into files on cases? It seems to me like it's a political stunt.
Of course.
They watched Brett Kavanaugh. Of course. They saw the Brett Kavanaugh hearings holding here in Adams County.
Scared.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. You know, in the it was kind of funny earlier tonight when I was here setting up. I had somebody ask me, like, well, what were they doing there on September 6th? I said, what do you mean September 6th? And he says, September 6th is Saturday. I guess I should check that before I say that, but apparently that is the day that September 6th is a Thursday. Okay, well, I misspoke. So I won't repeat that. But you know, I guess kind of going on, and I'm looking at one of my last questions here. It says, hold on, let me answer the question. What were they looking for? I don't know. They say they ran into it doing some digitalization, scanning of personnel records.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I don't know. I do know, you know, I've never requested a look at my personnel file. Really didn't think there was anything there.
Did they get to the W's yet?
Maybe they started at Z, I don't know.
Working backwards on top of that.
You know, nonetheless, I mean, again, this is something that's been there. I can only imagine that this document, whatever that they found in the transcript from 2004, you know, has been part of this file.
How old were you at that time?
Oh, 17 years ago.
Well,
27, my wife said. Let me do the math for me.
44.
Yeah, you know, and then, you know, yeah, at the time, yeah, I was only a patrol officer about a year and a half. I was certainly an officer, there's no question about that. Yeah, you know, it does seem suspicious. You know, I think a lot of people feel that way. I certainly feel that way. This is a case, again, that I've had conversations with before about it. I believe that the reasons had been talked about and discussed, and I certainly would have never put myself out there for this, running for sheriff, to put myself through this, because I can assure you, these last 12 days have been very difficult for me.
Brent, during the last several years, you started out as a young officer. You've been promoted multiple times.
Yes.
So this is more of a personnel question. During those promotion interviews, weren't they required to look at your record?
I'm sure that they did, and I mean, two of the people who promoted me are sitting in the room here. And honestly, in my personnel file, there's a letter from Roberta requesting this to be investigated, requesting this to be looked for. I don't remember the year, but a long time ago. And again, it's been looked at, and you're just doing your job. Hey.
She don't remember.
Yeah, there's.
But I do remember promoting you.
Yes.
I do remember that.
And thank you for that.
So the other question is, if you weren't running for sheriff, would they have found it?
No.
No.
No, they wouldn't have.
No.
Because there's nothing to find, they're just digging up dirt. There is nothing to be had here.
Well, look at all the county employees that have lost their jobs. Cindy Filippi is a good example of that. A great employee, and they've ruined her over nonsense, period.
Brent, weren't you first notified of all this on the 8th?
October 9th at about 3 o'clock.
Okay, then how did one of the non-local papers have in there that they had an open records request for that information on October 1st?
Yeah, so that's a good question that I can't answer. Obviously, somebody intimately related to knowing that this file was mysteriously found.
So they leaked it, but yet the sheriff sat on it, or the DA sat on it, for the night of form.
Yeah, I'm not able to speak to what other people did or didn't do in regards to that, but I mean, we're just going by what the dates are that on the timeline that have been printed or provided, so.
And people don't know either that you were injured in that Bozeman incident and required major surgery either.
Yeah, I was, and I had somewhat forgotten about that, but yeah, during that arrest, I was injured. I injured my hand at the scene where I arrested Stephen. Tore some ligaments or tendons in my hand. I required surgery. So, yep.
In this, I'm gonna say it wrong, this Gagliano Brady thing at the time, isn't there a certain time frame that it has to be completed in statutes or?
I'm certainly not an attorney. I've read a lot about it, and I don't know that exact answer. I do know that there are some different court cases that say some different things and talk about what it all is, but I don't know if there's a time limit or not.
Has Adams County ever invoked this Brady Gagliano thing to anybody else?
Yes, I believe probably like 4, maybe 5 other officers that the DA has written the same type of letter to or against.
And what time period?
And who was sheriff under these?
Well, I believe they've all been maybe in the last year-ish.
So in the last year, there's been 4 of these, and Adams County is losing employees at a high rate of number and can't keep employees.
Yeah, and
they're driving you right up the
yeah,
road.
I mean, certainly every case is different. And, the bad part to some degree is that, in talking, I've received support from literally around the state. This went, it was national, at least to some degree, but not that it was good. But I received calls from people from all around, and, there's coppers from all over the place. I've never heard of this. Never heard of this happening. Surrounding counties never heard of it happening. And it's new, and there's really no formal process to, it's not like a court case. It's not a court proceeding. There's no way to really object or appeal that letter. So it's just a matter of if all the facts were provided when the opinion was made. So.
Isn't there a set time though that they have to acknowledge this?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I was just wondering, the sheriff's department contracts with outside business. How transparent do you plan to make this information if elected?
So if I heard that right, the sheriff's office contracts with what?
With outside business?
With outside business. So I'll try and answer that the best where I think you're going with that. If I don't, just let me know. So as far as contracting with outside businesses, there are a few businesses that we would maybe provide escorting services to. Escorting as in for vehicles down there. I saw a few looks for people. Escorting, like oversized loads and things like that on the highway. So, yeah, again, everything we do is subject to open records law. Or at least that's the way I interpret the open records law. Any phone call I make, any email I send, there are some exceptions. But for the most part, everything we do as government is subject to open records law, and I think that we have to be transparent. We have to be where you can request information or ask questions and get that information so that builds trust in what we do. If you deny a request for certain reasons, then it just leaves questions. Why would you deny it? Why wouldn't you let us know what that information is or isn't?
How about your healthcare, food service, or security contracts that you guys have?
So as far as releasing those bids or being transparent to that, well, yeah, I don't know what we would be able to deny on that, assuming there's no inmate information attached to that, names and genders and things like that. But as far as counts and what's required of the food service, menus, calories, hot meals, cold meals, things like that, I couldn't imagine when you'd ever deny an open record request for something like that.
I just had a question. The sheriff's budget's very large, at least in my opinion. It's over $6 million. So what business accolades or credentials do you have to properly manage this budget as opposed to your opponents to keep the county more safe in a more efficient way?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is just in the budgeting aspect of forecasting and using spreadsheets to analyze what the budget is, where to improve, where to cut. To make a business model and use like the sales forecast. It would be sales forecast, but they'd be numbers that are generated that we know to anticipate what the budget is or where we need to improve or cut back on a year-to-year basis, and to dig deeper into that, just like the overtime budget. To have those types of numbers and those, think about the thousands of work hours it takes to generate $350,000 in overtime. That's a lot of manpower. That's a lot of extra hours being worked. Well, you got to look at that number and say, well, there's a reason this is high, or why is this high? And it's a lot cheaper than having paid the overtime. And people like overtime, but they don't like that much overtime. There's
Follow-up to that too would be what business degrees or credentials you have to manage those spreadsheets and so forth that your opponent does not have.
Yeah, so as far as, I have a business management degree, and in that there's all kinds of trainings, courses that I took. One of the areas that I always look at is that I kind of focus on was risk management, and risk management is looking at areas to where we have injuries and looking at why those injuries occur. And being time off, I always kid my boys going down the interstate, and we'll see I always call it the floppy mattress guy. When you see the the minivan with the mattress on the roof, that's the guy you don't want to follow because of what's likely going to happen. So I was joking around with my boys like that, and just risk management. We have injuries, and some of those injuries, they last for months and months, and now we're down an employee. So that's another area that we look at or I would look at to improve some efficiencies as well.
Is there a boilerplate budget, or would you be able to create a new budget?
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's probably been the same for years and years and years. It's either just slightly increased in different areas. And, there are a lot of set costs as far as, the employee wages, benefits. I mean, a lot of that's set. But, there's a lot of areas I think that we can improve on to, just make it more fiscally responsible to us as a taxpayer. And like I've said before, to run it as a business instead of just as money that's not yours. So I did see a hand back there before this last question, though. Okay. Yeah, the last question I had already been covered out here with, as it referred to the October 1st date, I think. Any other questions? Some of the other, I guess, questions that I've been asked, with people calling or talking, is, it refers to going back to the original case with why I'm on admin leave, is what the outcomes of the charges were. And again, there's no charges, department discipline issued against me during any of the investigations. Just another question too. It said, do I have any other incidents in your personnel file that should be concerned? And no, in the 22 years I've worked there, I've never been disciplined before. Question was there any warning that this was coming before you were officially put on leave? No. I received a phone call just moments prior to, I received a phone call from the attorney asking me to come to her office.
And she started out by asking about the sheriff's son, wasn't it? Or am I reading that wrong?
No, that was in a conversation that we had in September.
Oh.
Sorry, August. Misspoke.
You're so lucky you have her.
Yeah, I am. She's great. Yeah, she's great.
There was also an outside agency that asked past employees if they would disclose their letters of resignation, et cetera. And miraculously, the ones that were most negative never surfaced in anybody's file when they did the request for records over the last 8 years. Wonder where they went.
Yeah, I've heard that as well, but I can't speak to that. I don't know the specifics about that. But I have heard that.
What would you do with your training of your officers to make them more public friendly that your opponent is not doing?
I think just having them being out and about and showing up at different events. To some degree, it's at times, in my job is slightly different. I'm not out and about in the public. I'm not driving a squad car. I wear dress clothes in the office and do interviews. But being the person that I am and the community person, I mean, I coaching all these kids. I would love to at one time just went over to high school and sat down and had lunch with a bunch of the kids I coached. Just to a lot of them know what I do as a day job. And, you know, just having that kind of interaction with kids and the public, I think would go a long ways. Have them out, stop at gas stations, talk with the people, you know, sometimes it's looked at that they're, you know, taking an extra break or things like that, but there's a lot of good contacts that come out of simply stopping at a gas station, grabbing a cup of coffee, talking with who's there, and being approachable. There's a lot of good contacts that can come out of that.
But isn't it true that the officers were more or less told it was the good old days, people would stop in at, say my home, I'll be one of the honest people, and could sit and visit with you. You guys can't do that anymore.
Yeah, right. You know, a lot of that has to do with, you know, certain policies that are set and that we have to follow. So that.
But I'm just saying, how do you open it up then? How can you communicate? Come to my house to ask me what's going on in my community.
Right, and certainly we'd have to change those policies to open that up, to get those types of contacts open and to have those better positive contacts within our community.
But if they're out and about and they see somebody walking down the road, they could stop and say, hi, how you doing, or what's going on?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Until their time on their dispatch thing,
Yeah,
because you've been there too long. You sat still too long.
Because the cell phone rings.
Yeah.
City of La Crosse, what they do is have coffee with a cop. They'll have, they have coffee shops and stuff like that. And then once a year, they have it kind of like a party, so I shouldn't say a party, but a get together at a park where a lot of the cops are there, the officers, city officers are there, they can meet and greet and stuff like that.
Yep, and we've had that for a couple of years at our sheriff's office, and that's a great start to public relations, to have that opportunity to be able to out in the public and make those contacts, yes. One of the last questions I have is that, you know, what would I say to the citizens of Adams County about my character? And, you know, many people in the county have known me for many years, and I don't believe that anyone has any reason to question my character now. You know, since this incident has been in the media, I've received overwhelming support. That's all the questions I had.
You got one on the audience?
Oh, one question?
Yeah, I got two that can be answered with a yes or a no. And one is, does Brent York consider himself Brady Giglio impaired at this point, or no? Yep.
To some degree, yes, because there's no appeal process, formal appeal process.
Number two. You can decline this one. We have a sitting sheriff deputy, I won't say any names, who I think is Brady Giglio impaired regarding family members and drug arrests. Is he Brady Giglio impaired?
Yeah, I'll decline to answer that one. Any other?
Do you think there'll be any more deals like this coming up just before the election that he's gonna pull on you, or?
Well, I hope not. I don't know, you know, since this has hit, I mean, you question things, there's a lot of uncertainty with all this right now, so I hope not. Any other questions?
What can you say to the people that are on the fence about voting for you? Why they should vote for you?
Yeah, I would just go back to, you know, the facts of what this is. Look at my brochure. People have known me, known what I stood for, known what I'm about, my work. I've devoted, you know, my adult life to working for our community in our sheriff's office.
Brent?
None of those facts have changed.
One of the things that most impressed me when we first moved up here, kids' Little League game, you were late, you showed up in uniform, and you didn't just watch your kids. You weren't working. You walked around and let every kid at that park know that you were their friend. Whether they were teenagers or little kids, people need to see more of that, not just from you because you do it all the time, but from the sheriff's department.
Yeah, you know, that was, I believe I was with the Little League for about 8 years, and that was a great 8 years. I built a lot of relationships with kids, coached them at a young age, and some of the first kids I started coaching, I think graduated 2 years ago already.
Voting age, right?
So, you know, there's a lot of kids that I still see, and now they're young adults, voting adults. And, you know, yeah, I was that coach and that mentor and that friend to them. They knew what I did for a day job, and, you know, there was times kids and families came to me and expressed concerns or different things that were going on in their lives or information that they had. And that's exactly what we need. That's what we need. We can't have that wall up around us to prevent that dialogue for us to be approachable. And you know, that goes a lot of ways with us just being out in the community. No, not every officer needs to be a Little League coach, but just to be around and to be approachable and to talk to one another. And if you're just not around here, then you know you don't really have to deal with it. You don't have to listen to it. And I think that makes a difference for wanting and caring about what's going on here.
Or maybe some positive coaching like that, you know, for the officers will make a big difference with longevity, not losing officers, morale, not being a toxic environment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're part of the community.
Right, absolutely. And that all goes to play that you know, we're community minded. And you know, my flyer, through community involvement, we can make a difference. It all starts there. Sorry.
I'd like to comment on something that was at that went on in that forum, or not forum, but the debate supposedly. I've known you since you started on the force, and I think I've known a lot of people that have made one mistake in their life, maybe even 100 mistakes, but they ain't that bad. So what I saw you all along was your knowledge, your ability, your drive to do the job. One thing that really tugged at my heart was doing that video. He is under the most stress that he's ever been under in his life. How many people can look back at that video and see the smile when he mentioned his kids for that 5 seconds or less? That shows a lot to me.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you know, again, a lot of people in the county and the community have known me for a long time. They know who I am and what I stand for. And I think that goes you know, to that. And yeah, I touched on that last time. It was, you know, the department being a family, and we had, you know, we don't have Christmas parties anymore. We don't have those get-togethers. We used to have like summer parties and things that, you know, that's who we need to be. We need to be a family. We need to know one another and to be able to work with each other and know that when, you know, circumstances and situations arise, you know, it's just like a football team or basketball team and their chemistry working together. And that's essentially what we need to be as well.
Brent, I know that over the years when we were there, doing the cookouts on Sundays at the jail, we used to have the cookouts at lunchtime and dispatch and the road officers and the jailers and stuff. I mean, there was a camaraderie there. And I just noticed that, you know, over the last at least 5 years, that has, you know, deteriorated. I hope that, you know, somewhere down the road that can get rebuilt back into there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we would have those types of events. I mean, you know, the people are, if you're in dispatch, you're there. You're in jail, you're there. You're confined to that building for your shift. Whether it's 8 hours, 12 hours, or even 16 hours if you got ordered or picking up an overtime shift. You can't run the quick trip, get a soda, you know, you're there. And yeah, we had you know, it's a day, hey, might be packed or Sunday, everyone bring something in, we'll cook out, have a crock pot of whatever, meatballs or ham or whatever it was. We just gotta, you know, our job still got done. The job still got done. That didn't change. But those are the opportunities when people were brought together to deal with one another.
Do you know if your opponent is going to hold something like this to be open and honest? As much as you have been?
I don't know. Tonight, obviously, as y'all know, was scheduled for a forum, and that was canceled by the Lions, the people that were hosting it. That was canceled, and so since a lot of people knew the 22nd, and I acquired the hall here, rented this, and brought people together to ask questions and to get information out there. You know, this last 12 days is kind of sidelined me a little bit to what my plan was with my campaign. So yeah, I gotta get this and get back going, and you know, honestly, I've received such great support through this. You know, I hope it continues, and I hope those people come November 6th, get out and vote.
Hello, I am a realtor, and I had asked Sheriff Woolen if he could provide our business with a little training on identifying drugs, being that we get into a lot of situations that are pretty scary and end up having to call the cops. That never happened. What would be your maybe program that you would get involved in with the community businesses as such as real estate agents to help identify those drugs for us?
Yeah, absolutely, great question. So probably the number one drug we have right now is methamphetamine. It used to be heroin, it's meth now. And it's moving away from the heroin to meth because of the fentanyl, okay? And either one is scary, for sure. The fentanyl can kill you if you touch it or get exposed to it. And the methamphetamine, if you're exposed to the remnants of the cooking process, are very toxic and dangerous, as we learned when the house burned down in the city. So, you know, a great thing to do with that would be at the chamber. We get a lot of business at the Chamber of Commerce. Business after 5. Have a half-hour presentation. This is what a one-pot meth looks like. This is the remnants of it. This is what you should see. This is what you should do. Talk to the people. Show them pictures. You're going to get those questions. People have probably seen that, and maybe even realtors have probably went to a house that have probably seen a meth lab and didn't know what it was, because most general people don't know what meth labs look like. And we have to educate them. That's our job, to do that. And to keep everyone safe. If somebody touches or reactivates a one-pot meth cook, you know, it's toxic. It's very flammable, very flammable. And the schooling that I went to in lab settings by chemists, 1 out of every 2 meth people, not meth addicts, strung out on meth trying to cook their next batch. So it's very flammable, very dangerous. And there's a lot of bad chemicals in there that are very harmful to all of us. So take an opportunity like at the chamber, or if you have a specific request, like a Realtors Association meeting, go to that and do a presentation. We have to, you know, and that goes to the treatment court being a diversion court that would go to that. You know, that's educating the public, get them involved, get them educated on what's going on out there. All right, so we got 15 minutes left. If anybody doesn't have any other questions, I got a short closing. Did I say a question? No? Just stretching? All right. So, in closing, today, I believe you have a clear choice in front of you when you enter the polls on November 6th. Do you choose someone who took actions to attempt to discredit me to the public to benefit themselves, or me, someone who has devoted to serving the community with honor and transparency? I've devoted my career to keeping our community safe. I would be honored to have your vote to become your next sheriff of Adams County. Thank you for coming.